And you go down the rabbit hole, and what happened for me was I just began to understand that Bitcoin was the best asymmetrical bet for preserving my purchasing power and growing it over time. When you learn what other money is, what fiat money is, you realize, hey, this is actually a massive problem. Like this is maybe the root of the problems. And when people say, oh, money is the root of all evil, maybe it's just that the fiat system is really destructive and parts of it are very evil. Money doesn't have to be evil, but the system that's created that we all participate in is very destructive and very unfair. Like when I was a kid, I thought that bank had that money. But they don't have that money. They just create it out of thin air. So these banks can create money for nothing, earn an interest rate from you. They want that interest rate. They don't even really want you to pay it back. They want you to be indebted. That's how they make their money. And then if all blows up, if they take on too much risk, they just get bailed out by the public sector anyway. Yeah, there's this backstop of the Fed that can print endless amounts of money, bail out anybody, right? Of course, there's consequences to that. And that's what we're seeing here is, asset prices, inflation, cost of living inflation. I don't know. I guess it's the most powerful one, right, is out there. I would say the leader of the free world, as they call him, Donald J. Trump, I suppose would probably be the most influential person to be in that position and doing that. I think probably would have the most impact, right? That can be the catalyst that for somebody to be like, wait, what? What's going on here? What does that mean? What is the gold standard? I thought money was gold. I thought there's a bunch of gold. Doesn't Fort Knox have a bunch of gold? Isn't dollars backed by gold ultimately? No.
What happened to the inspection Trump and Elon were going to do to Fort Knox? What happened to that?
It was never going to happen. It was never going to happen. It was a LARP. It was pandering to a certain demographic. It was a good, fun joke. It was never serious. And Bitcoin, its ethos is to support node runners. There's been contentious Bitcoin forks or software forks and wars fought over the prioritizing of the individual to be able to run a node cheaply. All Bitcoin mining around the world is around 56 or 57% of it is from renewable energy sources, which is higher than any other industry in the world. 100% of the people that think that Bitcoin mining is wasteful don't understand Bitcoin. NFTs, literally, their value is all from wash trading. So, and they're left with this thing that's worthless. That's so 100%. They're scams. 100% they're scams.
Yes, we are back. We are live. I am Khalif Harold. This is the Real Money, Hard Money, Real Hard Money podcast. And I'm coming to you live with a special guest today. Forrest HODL is a Bitcoin-obsessed filmmaker and podcaster, crafting films and running nodes while championing BTC as a shield against fiat serfdom and a catalyst for financial freedom. I want my Real Hard Money family to welcome to the show Forrest HODL. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, man. What a description. That was eloquent. That was nice. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure, man. I scanned your profile and I saw what you were doing on X. We're all X maniacs. It's like we're addicted to it. Can you let the people know just a little brief introduction about yourself and like a little bit about your background?
Sure. Yeah. So I've been a business owner. I started a filmmaking and media business. When was it? I guess about 8 years ago now. Kind of developed and bootstrapped that while working just full time at crappy jobs, and decided that I wanted to do my own thing. Always had an interest in filmmaking, especially documentaries, and kind of just created that for myself and fell into certain types of films and series. I ended up making a really long-standing series on alternative dwellings, so people that live in tiny houses, off-grid, van life, stuff like that. Very different types of lifestyles. And just kept making that and making these films, and eventually stumbled into Bitcoin. A lot of my, there was a few times where I was like this close, to getting Bitcoin really early. It was like either 2013 and then 2017, dabbled in it both these times, and just had some things click, but not enough to really commit to it and really understand it. And then in 2022, I was just interested in following the collapse of Terra Luna and FTX. I just thought they were interesting stories, and I was more into investing at that point in my life. So being into investing at that point and holding stocks and REITs and indexes and dabbling, holding a little bit of Bitcoin and, what I refer to as a basket of diversified shit coins as well. And then just learning about, these different things from FTX collapsing and diving deeper into, okay, what actually is Bitcoin and what is crypto? And is there any value here? Is there any future, is there any future price movements that could benefit me from holding these things as opposed to something else? And I, you go down the rabbit hole, and what happened for me was I just began to understand that Bitcoin was the best asymmetrical bet for preserving my purchasing power and growing it over time, which, that means that there's a high reward, low risk comparatively. And so I just started, because of that, I just figured, why hold other things that don't have as much asymmetry to them? So I just started moving everything over to Bitcoin. And your conviction grows with that. And the other thing to me too was Bitcoin was very ethical. A lot of my life has been driven by ethics and, some forms of activism or just like personal actions that put me into different situations in my life. Like, I tried to go off grid for 3 years and like homesteading and living off the land, and just with the ethos of like wanting to be self-sufficient and things like that. And so ethics and that has always been a big driver for me. So when I learned more about Bitcoin, it wasn't just digital gold. It wasn't just number go up. It was, oh, wow, this could actually change. Well, when you learn what other money is, what fiat money is, you realize, hey, this is actually a massive problem. Like this is maybe the root of the problems. And when people say, oh, money is the root of all evil, maybe they're just slightly missing the mark there. Maybe it's just that the fiat system is really destructive and parts of it are very evil. Money doesn't have to be evil, but the system that's created that we all participate in is very destructive and very unfair. And I felt that unfairness. And so that's what drew me to Bitcoin a lot. And then, I brought filmmaking with me a bit. I'm working on a couple different Bitcoin films, a little initiative here with a few other really great Bitcoiners in my local town. We're onboarding businesses, filming a documentary about that, what it takes to accept Bitcoin as payment, the hurdles, the understanding, what kind of understanding you have to have of Bitcoin to start to accept it as payment and use it as that medium of exchange. So that's the current Bitcoin film project that I'm working on.
All of that was great, man. And that was loaded with starting from your journey to it, because it starts as an investment, right? It starts as your self-interest, greed. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be greed, but self-interest. You want to do better. You want to create more of this fiat stuff. And it makes you question. It takes you down that rabbit hole that we all go down. Right. And it's a beautiful thing because it is kind of like waking up from the Matrix. It's like the perfect analogy. It makes you ask, what is money? And then the other part you talked about just now was interesting is people always talk about the investment side of it. How rich can I get? What can it do for me? But no one asks, is it good? Is it a good thing for the world? Is it good? And I can loudly say, I think you feel the same, that it is a good thing for the world. And it makes you, act differently. You're talking about homesteading and getting back to nature. And like, if you're like a crypto bro and you haven't evolved to a Bitcoiner, they not like us. You know what I mean? It's not the same. You're talking about homesteading. They're talking about Lambos. It's not totally the same thing.
Totally.
So I totally get your ethos. I feel it. That's why I wanted to bring you on to hear more about your journey. And also, you talk about some really cool stuff that connected with me because I am a huge Mr. Robot fan.
Okay. I'm watching that right now so that's another thing that I just missed. That show came out in 2015. Mm-hmm. I watched the first season and then I just didn't watch I just fell off after the first season. The second season, they talk about Bitcoin a bunch in it. And that was, would have been 2016. And that might have been a spark
that
to keep me interested.
Spark, right?
I just missed
so many
it.
like just misses.
Yeah.
When you look back, right? Like, damn, I could have had it here. I could have had it there. I could have
Yeah.
had it there. So talk to me about what do you like about Mr. Robot? And you said they talk about Bitcoin in what way?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a cool show. It's entertaining, of course, but
Hmm.
it has a whole side to it that is really about changing society, right? And there was parts of my time, like, very much so. It seems like that show, especially the first season, is modeled after like Fight Club, right? And Fight Club is
Yeah.
all sort of about tearing down the system and rebuilding, right? The last scene of Fight Club is, the explosions, the towers going down, the city burning, whatever, right? Same with Mr. Robot. They're resetting the credit system. Their goal is to destroy the corporate data logs that has all this information that unfairly treats people. The credit and debt system is really something that I've been learning about recently. They talk about that and they show that in Mr. Robot, but I'm reading also the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, which is about the creation of the central bank.
Great book. I interviewed the author in 2018.
Is that right? Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one, what I like about that book is it's not necessarily like a Bitcoin book. It's a central bank book and it goes really deep into different things. But a lot of these Bitcoin books, the big print, broken money, they touch on a lot of different stuff. But this book seems to go really deep into certain things. And one thing that it went really deep into was how debt is created. And the fact that when you go to a member bank, you just go to your regular bank in your town, you take out debt. They don't have, like when I was a kid, I thought that bank had that money and they were giving me that money and I was paying them the interest rate. But they don't have that money. They just create it out of thin air. They're allowed to have an accounting mechanism where they only have to have a certain amount of reserves. So all the other money that they've lent out is just freshly created. And then they're charging you an interest rate on that. So there's sort of this art of, like, I'm starting to have this kind of idea that if we didn't have the fiat money system where there's money being created at no cost, that the interest rates for borrowing would actually be a lot higher because there's a real cost of giving up your money to lend and borrow and facilitate that. Whereas right now there's no cost to that. So these banks can create money for nothing, earn an interest rate from you. They want that interest rate. They don't even really want you to pay it back. They want you to be indebted. That's how they make their money. And then if all blows up, if they take on too much risk, they just get bailed out by the public sector anyway, right? So there's this backstop.
Welfare.
Yeah, there's this backstop of the Fed that can print endless amounts of money, right? They've said that multiple times. They can print endless amounts of money to bail out anybody, right? Of course, there's consequences to that, and that's what we're seeing here is, asset prices, inflation, cost of living inflation. And I guess, coming back to the show, Mr. Robot, I think a lot of that, it doesn't explicitly say all that, but, the scenario, the world that they've built in that show is slightly, dystopian. They do go through some of the things of trying to rebuild the society and break it down and all this, but it's all of that can be, if you look at it through this lens of a Bitcoiner, you can see, okay, well, all of these problems that these people are trying to solve, these hackers in this show are trying to solve, are a product of fiat money. And even in the first episode of that show, the Mr. Robot character, he says, something about like the world hasn't been the same since we got off the gold, or money hasn't been real since we got off the gold standard. And it's such like a kind of a throwaway line that if you're not paying attention, you might just, oh, okay, whatever. But there is so much truth to that. And it's so insightful and deep. And then, of course, that can be the catalyst that for somebody to be like, wait, what? What's going on here? What does that mean? What is the gold standard? I thought money was gold. I thought there's a bunch of gold. Doesn't Fort Knox have a bunch of gold? Isn't dollars backed by gold ultimately? No.
What happened to the inspection Trump and Elon were going to do to Fort Knox? What happened to that?
It was never going to happen. It was never going to happen. It was a LARP. It was pandering to a certain demographic. It was a good, fun joke. It was never serious. It was like Elon fighting Musk. Wait, those are the same people. Elon fighting
Zuckerberg. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just, people forget about this stuff and move on to the next thing, right?
Yeah. Because if they did inspect Fort Knox, the public wouldn't like it. The public wouldn't like it because, why hasn't it been audited in 50 plus years?
And
Why
that,
can't we cut military spending? Why is there like a black hole in the Pentagon spending trillions of dollars going? How do you, for trillions of dollars, just a black hole, black box? They don't want that out.
no, these are dangerous questions to be asking because the answers are, the answers aren't told to us for a reason. They're hidden from us. Like,
It's dark.
maybe that gold might not be there, right? That it's all like, how much lies are there that we don't know are lies because we have no way of finding the truth? There's lots of that out there. Yeah, I mean, even that audit I think they did in the 60s or whatever of Fort Knox, I believe it was certain vaults and they like visually saw it, like gold is very hard to verify. Of course, that's another thing that you do as a Bitcoiner. You start to realize, okay, Bitcoin is digital gold. That's a narrative. And then you start to think, okay, well, is it? And what is gold, and how is Bitcoin better than gold in some ways? Is it worse? You start comparing these things, and it's very hard to verify gold. You have to chemically verify it to really ultimately verify it in a very serious way. You probably have to melt it down because there could be tungsten underneath. It could be wrapped. It could be all sorts of stuff. Yeah. That's just a whole nother thing.
They say there's a lot of tungsten in like central banks around the world, unknowingly or knowingly.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So I also learned browsing your page that you run a node.
Yeah.
You run a node. So tell the people, tell the Real Hard Money fam, what is a node, first of all, and why do you run one?
Yeah, those are great questions. So I run a node. Okay, first, actually, let me explain what a node is. A node is a piece of software that you run on a device. Typically, you run it on its own server. So I have here a little mini PC. This is just the box here. You can see that. It's just a little mini PC. It cost me a couple $100. And I wanted to have a dedicated device to run this software. So you run the Bitcoin software. There's different implementations. The two most popular ones are Bitcoin Core and Bitcoin Knots. And what that does is that software allows you to connect to the Bitcoin network. And it essentially starts to download all of the Bitcoin transactions of the entire history from the Genesis block onward. So from January 3rd, 2009 onward. And the reason that you do this is because if you're a Bitcoin holder, your Bitcoin UTXOs, which are unspent transaction outputs, which is what Bitcoin actually is these UTXOs, these little chunks of Bitcoin. And to really know if you hold Bitcoin or not, you really have to run your own node. Otherwise, you're trusting somebody else. You're trusting somebody else's node. So when you run your own node, you're going through all the transactions of history. And if you connect your hardware wallet, if you connect your wallet to it where you hold your Bitcoin, that software is going to interact with sort of the registry of your UTXOs, your Bitcoin, and it's going to verify. It's going to say, oh, your Bitcoin is where we think it is. And it's been validated not only by your node that's gone through the entire block history or the entire history of the blockchain, but also the 20 other thousand nodes that are out there that are all saying that your Bitcoin is your Bitcoin and it's here and it's in this public wallet. And yeah, it's a giant decentralized ledger, and a Bitcoin node is the way to access it and to interact with the network. So if you send Bitcoin, if you have your Bitcoin on an exchange and you send it to a friend, that isn't happening from exchange to exchange. It's the exchange is sending that transaction information to their node, and that node is relaying it to the Bitcoin network. It's being included in a block. The Bitcoin miners include it. They get paid to do so. And all the other Bitcoin nodes out there agree that that's a valid transaction, and they relay it out and take a copy of that block and that transaction. And in that is it being moved from your wallet in an exchange to your friend's wallet. And so a Bitcoin node can do all that. You can validate it. You can do it yourself. You're not trusting anybody else. So there's sort of three central reasons to run a node. Permissionlessness. You're not asking, Blockstream Jade or Blockstream Green to use their node. You're not asking Ledger Live to use their node. You are doing it yourself. You're asking your own node. The other reason is privacy. So you're leaking a little bit of your public wallet address information to the node that you're using. But if it's your own node, that's not an issue. If it's somebody else's node, they can basically see how much Bitcoin you have. It's not vulnerable in a way where they could take it, but they could, if they had more information on you, say your IP address, or they sent you the wallet and they have your actual address and information, or KYC or something, they could link you to your Bitcoin. So that's a potential, and it should be a human right to have privacy. So that's another reason to run your own node, is there's a semblance of privacy. And the other reason is a decentralization and a support of the network. So I mentioned there's 20,000 nodes out there. Basically, there only ever needs to be, like, it could go all the way down to one node. And as long as one person has a copy of the Bitcoin blockchain, they could share it with somebody else. And then that would create the network again. So it's very decentralized at 20,000 nodes out there, but you can continue to support the idea of decentralizing it. And Bitcoin, its ethos is to support node runners. There's been contentious Bitcoin forks or software forks and wars fought over the prioritizing of the individual to be able to run a node cheaply. I mentioned being able to run it for $200. I could run a Bitcoin node on this computer that I'm using as well. It's pretty easy to do, and it's intentionally easy to do. Whereas that really differentiates it from other cryptocurrencies, where running a node, you basically have to be a business to do that. You have to have a data center, or you just spin up a node on AWS, and that centralizes everything, and that doesn't incentivize and create this community and this understanding that nodes are important. So if you hold those other cryptocurrencies, you just don't run a node. You just don't care about it. It's not something that's important, and therefore it becomes a centralization point, and centralization is vulnerability. And if you're thinking about something that's sound money, you want the most secure protocol. If you're holding your entire wealth in something that has a centralization component to it, that is a vulnerability, that isn't a smart choice to do. You want to hold your value in something that is secure. And so the security of the Bitcoin network is paramount, and it's the most important. And they've sacrificed other parts of what is termed the Bitcoin trilemma, right? Decentralization, security, and speed. They've sacrificed speed, right? They've made it so that it's cheaper to run a node, and because they've kept the block size smaller, but there's the possibility that it's more expensive to send a transaction. So there's these trade-offs, right? Or that it's slower to send a transaction.
And that's what you want if you're going to create a global financial network, right? You want security first, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And we'll trade off that speed for the security, because without the security, it all fails.
It all fails. It all fails. It's the foundation, right? And the way that protocols are built, we're using an information protocol right now, the internet, and it grew in layers, right? It grows in layers, so there's different types of ability to do something on top of the base layer of the communications protocol that we're using. Same thing is happening with the financial protocol of Bitcoin. So on this same Bitcoin node, this server, I run a Lightning channel. I run my own Lightning channel in custody. So I have my own custodial Bitcoin, and that's a layer on top of the on-chain Bitcoin. And because Bitcoin is programmable money, there's people that have been able to build technology to create a smart contract and then have payments within that channel and route to other Lightning nodes, and you're still using Bitcoin. You're not using some other kind of token or anything, but you're able to send the value of that Bitcoin incredibly quickly and incredibly cheaply on that layer 2, like Lightning. And then you can settle it on chain at a certain point, but you can have thousands or millions of transactions and then settle it in one on-chain base layer transaction on the Bitcoin blockchain. So Bitcoin scales. It's going to scale. That's the way money's always worked, and that's the way that protocols in general.
You're really good, man. Do you have a podcast?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Because your delivery is great, and it's very digestible and relatable and understandable, right? So this Bitcoin thing of ours can be so technical and alien and vast. It's a lot of to know. And somebody talked to Max Kaiser, like, give me the 5-year old version. Explain to me Bitcoin like I'm a 5th grader. And Max said, no, grow up. It's important. This is important. Some things are complex and they're important and you have to understand it. And I think that's where we are. But your delivery you remind me of Jeff Booth in a lot of ways, which I admire, highly respect Jeff Booth. I think he's super underrated. But yeah, man, keep going. It's music to my ears. So that was a great introduction for anybody that in our audience, Real Hard Money fam. If you've never heard about nodes, that's what they are. They're important to decentralization, you know. So what do you say to people that are saying Bitcoin's energy use, running nodes, running miners, it's unsustainable, it's not good for the planet? What do you say to people like that?
Well, it's a very interesting conversation to have because people have just an innate assumption that energy use is bad. And I don't believe that. I don't actually believe energy use is bad. So that is a very difficult thing to, you're coming at somebody at a completely different concept, right? If you fundamentally believe like those two different things are very opposed to each other. So that's very difficult. So that's not where I start though. I talk more about how the energy use of Bitcoin has actually been incredibly beneficial for the current energy systems. So, if somebody's talking about energy use is bad of Bitcoin mining, they're likely supporters of renewable green energy, as I am, right? I want our energy sources to be, not damaging to the ecosystems where they're extracted from, or, pollute the air and all this, right? That would be ideal, right? So I talk about how these renewable energy sources, when they're installed, they're intermittent. And that's not really the way the grid works. So the grid, there's these grid operators, the electrical grid operators, they actually have to allow an excess amount of electricity to be running through the grid at all times. And their most important thing is to make that grid stable, right? So they want excess energy so that if a huge load comes on to the network, if there's a bunch of people, this isn't going to do it, but a bunch of people flick their light switches on, that's demand for electricity, right? So they want to be able to meet that demand immediately. And so you have to think of the inputs to that grid, and there's certain types of energy generation that is very stable. So like natural gas plants, these sort of fossil fuel plants that can just burn their energy source and generate electricity from doing so. They can be really constant and stable with that. Nuclear is very much like that, and so is hydro. So these are very
Speaking of nuclear, the U.S. just bombed the nuclear facilities in Iran, and the hash rate dropped off the map. You saw that?
Weird coincidence, right?
Did you see that?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, it makes you go, maybe Iran was mining secretly. And I think with nuclear, that's hardcore. That's even more impressive. I don't know about more impressive, but that's at least as powerful as geothermic volcano mining, right?
Yeah, for sure. Right. Yeah. So with the grid though, it's like you have to think of inputs and outputs. So these inputs of renewable energy are really unstable. Like the sun shines, there's a cloud that goes around, in front of the sun. There's not power going to the grid if you're using solar panels. The wind fluctuates for wind turbines, all these kind of things. So the grid doesn't really like that. It doesn't really value that. It's going to value stable energy a lot more. So what Bitcoin miners can do and what their natural incentive is to do, they're not incentivized to seek out, they're not environmental freaks. They don't care about the environment. They're financially driven. They're businesses, but the natural incentive is for them to find the cheapest source of electricity. And because, as I just stated, renewable energy is not as valuable to the grid because of its intermittency and its unreliability, that energy can be bought at certain times for really cheap prices when it's not needed on the grid. So that's what Bitcoin miners have done. They've facilitated the use of renewable energy where it hasn't been useful anywhere else. So that basically funds more renewable energy projects, because those renewable energy projects are now profitable because they can sell their energy no matter what to Bitcoin miners at a certain cost. And then if the grid wants it at a higher cost, the Bitcoin miners, there's no cost, there's no loss to them at turning off their switch. If mining becomes unprofitable, it makes sense for them to shut their miners off, and they can do that instantly. Whereas other industry can't. So there's been grid curtailing forever, but it's usually with like smelting plants, and then it takes an hour for it to wind down, and then there's all this heat loss of the aluminum smelting or whatever, and then when they ramp up, there's a big energy waste, and so it's just completely inefficient. Whereas Bitcoin miners are just better at that. So to sum that all up, right, it's basically Bitcoin miners incentivize renewable energy, and therefore it's trending towards more and more renewable energy. Right now, all Bitcoin mining around the world is around 56 or 57% of it is from renewable energy sources, which is higher than any other industry in the world. So, and it's trending higher in that direction. So why would you not want to support something that is trending higher and higher? The other side of this as well is we all use energy for things, and it's really about we use energy for what we value. You know, I value using my computer. I'm willing to turn my computer on. I value driving to the store instead of walking. I'm going to use energy to do that with burning gasoline. If you don't understand Bitcoin, you don't understand how valuable this is to have a store of value that you can hold, and there's no maintenance costs, and there's no leaks, and there's an absolute supply cap that we've never seen with anything else in the entire world. If you don't value that, and you see the Bitcoin mining operation uses the same amount of electricity as Argentina, you're going to say that's incredibly wasteful, because it's the energy is being used for something that you don't value. But value is subjective. I would say the vast majority of, 100% of the people that think that Bitcoin mining is wasteful don't understand Bitcoin. Like, absolutely.
Exactly.
I would say that.
I mean, you can use a bunch of energy to binge watch the Kardashians, right? Is that valuable?
Exactly. I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, we don't think so, but that person might, right?
And it's their right to.
It's their right to, but, compare it to actually securing a global digital network, monetary network, 24 hours a day, never been hacked, never lost. I like to say Bitcoin never lost, undefeated.
Undefeated. I like it.
That's super insightful takes. And something tells me that you might want to get into this Bitcoin energy play with the knowledge you have in it.
Oh, sure.
Sounds like you want to jump into it.
Well, I've got ideas. Okay. I can share them if you want. But I mean, one of the ideas here is that another part of the wasted energy is that 100% of the electricity that goes into these machines, energy is never it never disappears. It's just transformed. So that energy is transformed into heat, right, from doing computations with the hardware. And that heat is incredibly useful. Like, we use heat in all sorts of industry. So my idea, coming from living, trying to be sustainable and homesteading and stuff, would be to set up a massive aquaponics setup where you have immersion miners heating the water to grow tilapia. You feed the tilapia, their waste feeds the plants clean the water to support the tilapia living. So I think that would be a really cool business that could be really sustainable and really profitable as well, because you're mining Bitcoin to generate heat, and you would have to heat that water anyway, but you're getting paid to heat the water basically. And then you have this aquaponics setup. That would be something I would love to do.
I knew you had something in your craw, sticking in your craw, waiting. In the chamber. Hey, I might be an investor in that. Let's stay in touch on that.
Let's go. Yeah.
You've called fiat modern serfdom. If you could force one world leader to live solely on Bitcoin for a year, who'd it be and why?
Wow. Okay. So they would have to live on Bitcoin, not swap into fiat, spend their Bitcoin. Oh, okay. I don't know. I guess it's the most powerful one, right, is out there. I would say the leader of the free world, as they call him, Donald J. Trump.
Yeah.
I suppose would probably be the most influential person to be in that position and doing that. I think probably would have the most impact, right? Yeah. We've seen politicians adopting it. We've seen political leaders adopting it to some degree, whether it's lip service or not, I don't know. But there's some bills, there's some interesting conversations happening. Still, I think Bitcoin is still in this phase, very much so in its store of value phase. So in that hypothetical, there's the use case of medium of exchange, which is really not where we're at with Bitcoin at this point. We're still very much in the store of value phase, but it needs to be used as a money. I believe so, and technically it does. So I think that would be impactful to just see, because that's a huge pushback from the normies out there. Is just, oh, I can't go to the store and spend Bitcoin, so it's not money because I can't use it. It's like, oh, okay, right. Well, is it just going to happen overnight that everyone's going to accept Bitcoin, or is it going to take time? Like, is it going to develop over time that people will accept it?
Yeah, when credit cards were introduced, it was this wild new thing. People were like, I'm not doing this. What is this?
Totally. Yeah, exactly.
So I got another one for you. You're experimenting with leverage Bitcoin strategies. What's the riskiest financial play you'd never recommend to hodlers?
Yeah. I think the riskiest is really just getting involved in some of these, out on the risk curve, whether it's stocks or options of these liquid leveraged Bitcoin equities. That would be risky, because I think why it's risky is because people don't have enough information about them. They are I feel like you want to have a lot of information before you are making positions in these highly risky assets. I think oftentimes people will just see some massive run up of something and think, oh, okay, I got to get in on this, but they have no idea what they're even buying. And there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of retail buying things that they have no idea what it is, how much Bitcoin they could acquire, what that Bitcoin's worth, what the company's worth, any counterparty risk. People kind of hop in the deep end of the pool before they check the temperature of the pool is kind of the thing there. But yeah, I mean, my whole podcast channel, I have like 50 videos about MSTR, and I've dived deep into like all the treasury companies, or not all of them, but lots of them. And so, I feel comfortable holding positions of them in certain aspects of my portfolio. And then, I've got a leveraged play going on right now where I've actually taken out a really small collateralized loan of my Bitcoin, just a small chunk of Bitcoin. And then I've moved that into, in Canada here, we have a tax-free savings account, so we can get dividends at a tax-free rate. So my whole concept and theory with this portfolio, or this trade that I'm doing, is hold MSTE, which is a leveraged version of MSTY, which is a yield-bearing instrument off of MSTR. And then
wait a minute. I thought I was degen with my Misty position. There's a MSTE that leverages Misty.
It's only in Canada. So in Canada, there's MSTY, right? Misty, but it's structured differently. It's not a synthetic long covered call position. It's shares, and they sell covered calls on 50% of the holdings. So okay. So MSTE is not
based on Misty.
No, different.
Okay.
Slightly different. So MSTE is based on the Canadian version of Misty. So it's 25% leverage on that strategy, the traditional covered call strategy. So then the idea there is you take those dividends and you buy Bitcoin with it, and you add that to the loan to value collateralized Bitcoin to lower the loan to value, and then you can take out more equity on that, or more cash out on that loan that you've created, and then buy Misty with that. So it's this compounding leveraged effect with the dividends adding Bitcoin. And then because of that, you're able to take out 50% of that in cash. And then you add that cash to Misty, and you just do that over and over and over.
We got to break. So what do you see about the dangers? This is really interesting, because now you're talking my language. So what are the dangers, right? This is a risky play.
Oh,
course, right? Leverage upon leverage upon, like, you don't know what could happen, black swan timing and all this stuff like that.
Yeah, the risk is the same with any leveraged play, right? It's leverage unwinding. So So what could happen is if there's a black swan and Bitcoin drops like crazy, if you have a collateralized Bitcoin loan, you're going to have to add Bitcoin to lower your loan to value. Otherwise, you're going to get liquidated. There'll be a forced liquidation period price at 80% loan to value. They liquidate your Bitcoin with the service I'm using, and then they pay the loan off and send you back the rest. So you don't want that to happen, right? That's a forced seller moment. So that's something you want to protect. You want to protect your loan to value ratio so that you're not having a margin call situation. The other risk there is that you're holding a derivative play on Bitcoin that pays dividends, pays income based on volatility harvesting. So even now, I'm sure you've seen a lack of, or like a lower amounts of payouts on the American Misty. The Canadian version of MSTY and MSTE have both lowered their monthly dividend by a percentage, and that's because of the lack of volatility within MSTR that they're structured on. So that's a big risk, is they pay high dividends because they're volatile. It's a volatile stock, and that's when you sell covered calls, a huge part of the premium is based on volatility, and the volatility is dried up a little bit on MSTR. Doesn't mean it can't come back.
On purpose.
Yeah. And
seller at all. They're doing it on purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they're re-leveraging a little bit now, not hitting the ATM, and they're aiming to have more volatility in their stock. I think he wants more volatility. So I think with that, we're probably seeing the trend of maybe a bottoming of volatility in Bitcoin and MSTR. So with that volatility increasing, these yield products become more attractive in that way. You're also capping your upside, so there's opportunity cost there. But I would say the biggest full risk is sort of a volatility crush on these yield instruments. And then of course, with what I'm doing, the additional risk is that you don't manage your loan to value right. And you're over leveraging.
Yes, that's the crux that make everything collapse.
Totally. Yeah.
In that scenario.
Yeah. And then maybe Bitcoin underperforms the interest rate that you get on something like this. There's a lot of variables here, right? But I don't see it. I see those risks as being pretty minimal. And then again, this is like an experiment for me. This is like a fun experiment. I plan to make a video on the entire process. And then, if the loan to value got really, started ramping up and going higher because Bitcoin's price was going lower, no problem. I could put more Bitcoin in there and just let it sit and not get liquidated because it's
so. Let me get this straight. You take the loan out, right? Let's say, just hypothetically, 10,000 worth of Bitcoin to get 5,000 fiat. You take that 5,000 fiat, you go buy MSTE.
Correct.
Right? You get the dividends monthly or quarterly?
Monthly.
And then you feed that back into the loan.
Correct.
To increase your collateral, and then request more loan out.
Yeah.
And with that extra secondary loan, you then buy Misty. Okay. now we're out into on a cliff, right?
And so you're acquiring
with the Misty dividends. What do?
You buy more Bitcoin.
Straight Bitcoin, and then you put it back into the loan?
Yes. It's a feedback loop. It's a feedback loop. So you're doing two things. You're acquiring, with the dividends, you're acquiring Bitcoin and increasing your loan to value, or lowering your loan to value, increasing the value held in collateral. And then with the loan, the additional loan amount that you're able to take out, you're buying Misty. So you're increasing your shares of Misty, you're increasing your amount of Bitcoin, and it's compounding on itself.
Okay.
And the reason I'm doing this as well is, again, we have a tax-free savings account where dividends aren't taxed. So I think if you didn't have a tax advantage system here and you were doing this with Misty in America, it wouldn't
be as advantageous.
No, it might just make sense. And they literally, I'm using Ledin to do this. I'm not affiliated with them or anything. It just happens to be what I believe is the most trusted system to do this on. They also have a product where you literally take out a loan and it buys Bitcoin and just adds that to your collateral right away. And it's just
B2X or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
Something like that. Yeah.
BX.
Which would probably be better than buying Misty and not having the tax advantage dividends. I would say that would probably outperform.
Right.
Just buying Bitcoin with the loan.
I think it would be a great time to do that if anyone could. Not financial advice. This is financial entertainment, edutainment, I should say, like KRS-One used to say. So that's an interesting play, man. That's deep down the rabbit hole. Please, users at home, it's professionals. Please do not try at home unless you've been properly trained, okay? This is a big boy's game, like Peter Dewan said on my last podcast. This is a big boy's game.
And
if you know.
And like I said at the beginning of this, the biggest risk to, the riskiest thing for people is getting involved in something that they don't fully understand. So
yes,
this is complicated. So don't just listen to this one thing that we've talked about here and think, oh, I'm going to go do that, because you're going to make mistakes, and those mistakes cost you a lot of money. And again, and the other thing too is with leverage. I mean, this is just general advice around the board. You do a very small amount compared to your stack, right?
Right.
5% leverage or something, like just go super low.
Yeah.
If you're going to mess
super
with that.
Low.
Yeah.
Single digits.
Yeah.
Super low.
Yeah.
Because you never know what can happen. But it's interesting. I like it.
Yeah.
For sure. Let's see. Where do I want to take it? Oh, definitely this. Definitely here. Vancouver Island's Bitcoin economy.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are starting something up there, right? And it's thriving with your help. Can you talk to us about that, what you're starting over there?
Yeah. So I'm involved with this group here. There's some great Bitcoiners. I just moved here like last winter and started a Bitcoin meetup, met one other Bitcoiner. He's like, I'm super down to like co-host it and do a bunch of work around it. And then now we're having every 3 weeks we have a Bitcoin meetup. And there's like dozens of people that show up. And this is like a tiny little town. So it's exploding with popularity. And then one person there is spearheading this initiative to onboard businesses. So Comox Valley Bitcoin, I think is what it's called on Twitter and stuff. Anyway, I, and the other creator of the meetup are like reaching out to businesses, helping them accept Bitcoin as payment, and creating the initiative for like a circular economy. So people getting paid in Bitcoin, people paying in Bitcoin, and just generally more understanding and acceptance of it. She's even thinking of opening up a storefront that is like an accessible place for people to go to and learn about Bitcoin, buy hardware wallets, have meetups there, talks, all sorts of stuff. So it's kind of crazy. Like last week we onboarded 4 businesses in this tiny little town. So
yeah.
And we put them on Bitcoin Map or btcmap.org. And
same. We're doing the same over here, man. We're doing the same over here.
Oh, no way. Really?
Yeah. Putting businesses on BTC Map. If you check my profile, there's me paying in Bitcoin at a small place here in Thailand on the island.
Amazing.
We're doing the same thing, trying to set up just on board, merchants, because even just asking, do you guys accept Bitcoin? It puts the little seed into, okay, you don't? All right. And then maybe go to the next one and say, you guys take Bitcoin? And then people will start thinking, should I take Bitcoin? Like, what's going on? People are asking about this. Maybe I'm missing out on something as a merchant, but that's really cool to see what you guys are doing. Kind of like BTC Isla with Isabel. They're doing that out there, and they're starting a store, Bitcoin Cafe out there. And I've seen in other places, of course, in Costa Rica, right? Bitcoin Beach and all that stuff like that. And, we're trying to do the same.
There's Bitcoin Beach in El Salvador, Bitcoin Jungle, Costa Rica, Bitcoin Island in Mexico. And here in Canada, we want to make Bitcoin Valley. So, because we live in a valley. Yeah. So Bitcoin Valley.
Right. So
and,
I saw.
You guys will need something in Thailand there.
Yeah. So like we're on an island, but it's like island has been taken already, right?
Right. Yeah, that's a tough one.
That's a tough one. Coconut, Bitcoin coconut.
Yeah.
Something like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was really cool. So it's not Vancouver Island. It's not Vancouver Island.
Yeah, we kind of have, so the Bitcoin meetups that we do is Bitcoin Van Isle, which is short for Vancouver Island. And So we're doing it here. Comox Valley is the main one, and then we're kind of like anytime we go visit another place, we set up a meetup, and then we invite people to come at the local towns on Vancouver Island, and then we teach them and we say, hey, do you want to run this instead, because we're just here visiting. So we're spreading out the Bitcoin meetup idea, because what we found is having that Bitcoin meetup is really like people come together and they start to see like maybe they're just dabbling in it, and they learn a few things from the meetup, meet some people, and then we all build on each other and we all work together. And like, because of the meetup, we have this strong team of people with the orange pilling mission of onboarding businesses, and it's happening, and we're streamlining it, and we want to open source the whole protocol and like our strategy and techniques and everything. But it's really having that team of doing things is really key, I think. And that starts, at least for us, that starts with the meetups. So yeah, that's the Bitcoin Vancouver Island. And we're just a town in the middle of Vancouver Island doing
we just
specifically
recently
the
had our
onboarding.
first we just recently had our first meetup
Nice.
a couple weeks ago. We might do a 3-week cadence, so next week bring it back. But yeah, I'm totally excited that you're doing that, because that's something that we want to do here as well. And it does make a difference when you see face to face and you're talking to somebody, and you can relate more. And if you showed up to this event, you have a high level of interest, at least, right? And
I think it's huge. I think it's happening all over the world too. Like, it's not just me and you doing this, right? This is happening. This is growing. Like, this is the network effect in play, and Bitcoin benefits so much from the network effect.
For sure. All right, now we've come to the point of the interview where we wrap up. But before we wrap up, we go to the lightning round. I know you will appreciate that, just off the title, right?
I love it.
I popped into Grok and I said, give me 10 lightning round questions to ask Forrest HODL. Okay, so I haven't even read these, so we're just gonna go bang through them fast and have some fun with this. All right, what's the wildest thing you trade for Bitcoin right now?
Ooh, wildest thing I would trade for Bitcoin? Well, I have a bunch of first edition Pokemon cards that I'm actively trying to figure out how to get rid of for Bitcoin. That's just the first thing off my head. Lightning round style. That's what I would say. My Charizard.
That's a good answer. Yeah, people don't know about how, you have Charizards, like special edition type.
Yeah, I do. They're worth a decent amount. Yeah.
Okay. I knew you was a nerd like me. Next one, cold storage or hot wallet? What's your go-to and why?
Oh, definitely cold storage. You got to go with the Cold Card or the Blockstream Jade. Those are great options. Long-term cold storage. I think the only reason to use a hot wallet is for convenience, and it should just be a similar amount of what you would keep in your wallet, or if you were planning on spending it relatively soon. Otherwise, it's at risk. So cold storage all day.
Nice. Next one. If Bitcoin were a movie, what genre would it be?
What an interesting question. I don't know. Might be a documentary. It's a lot to pack into anything else, right? Like, you can only surface level on a lot of stuff. Movies are condensed. They're an hour and a half, 2 hours. You can't really get very deep into stuff. I think it's got to be like a Ken Burns style, 8-part series.
8-part
documentary.
Long. It's a lot to unpack. You can't box Bitcoin in. It's so everything. Touches everything, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. What's the weirdest place you've ever accessed your Bitcoin node?
That's the weirdest place I've ever accessed my Bitcoin node.
Well,
I work with my friend, and I are developing a really cool Lightning-based project, and he lives in Ohio, so he accesses my Bitcoin node from Ohio remotely. So it's not me doing it, but I've only ever used it from my local computer.
Right.
But he uses my node from Ohio, which is pretty cool.
So that was kind of an interesting question to ask, right?
Yeah.
HODLing forever or cashing out for a dream purchase? What's it going to be?
Well, ultimately, money is to be used at a certain point. I'm not going to die with all my sats, right? I want to spend some sats. It's not about cashing out because Bitcoin is money. So it's about, spending it on a purchase. Right now I'm renting, and I'm doing so because I think it makes more sense. I can stack more sats. I did the math, and I would have to sell some Bitcoin to buy a home. I've owned a home in the past, and there's trade-offs and benefits to renting or owning. But I think in the future, it'd be nice to own a home again. And I would be willing to part with some sats to do so. But predominantly, there's in my name there is Forrest HODL, right? I like to hold on to my Bitcoin because I know it's growing in value while we're still in the adoption phase here. It'll grow in value forever because humans are intrinsically deflationary, but we're in a rapid adoption cycle still at this point. So it'll grow a lot in value.
Great answer. Next one. If you could pitch Bitcoin to an alien, what's your 10-second spiel?
Oh, geez. I don't know.
10
yeah.
seconds.
10 seconds. Wow. Yeah. Bitcoin is sound, fair money that doesn't benefit unproportionally certain individuals with access to the money printer. It has a real cost of production. And it, again, just makes it fair. I don't know if that was 10 seconds or not. 10 seconds is pretty short.
That
There you go.
I'll take some Bitcoin and alien. NFT hype, hilarious fad, or total scam?
Basically a scam. You look at NFTs, there's some potential real world use case for validation of something that's like a ticket, like you could create an NFT for like a ticket to a ball game, right?
Right. A one-off, verified, one-off, authentic type of contracts, maybe.
Sure. Sure. And is that better than maybe just centralizing it? That's what we have now. Like, the guy with the scanner scans your ticket when you go into a concert or whatever. They just have a centralized database, whether it's valid or not. So I don't know if that's even really necessary, right? To have the decentralized validation consensus of that. But for the vast majority, like NFTs, literally their value is all from wash trading. So what they would do is they would trade, they would buy and sell their own NFTs. And then eventually somebody would say, oh, this NFT is only going up in value. I'm going to buy it. And that's unsuspecting retail, spend $1 million on a picture of an ape, and they're the only real person that ever ended up buying it. And they bought it at a price that was massively inflated because of the wash trading that happened. And they're left with this thing that's worthless. That's so 100% they're scams. 100% they're scams. And there's also money laundering that happens with it because that's typical in artwork in general, but it happens with NFTs as well.
That's a whole nother movie.
Yeah.
Right. I got some worthless JPEGs.
Oh,
that's
damn.
another story. But if you could tattoo one Bitcoin principle on everyone, what would it be?
One Bitcoin principle. Okay, I'm having a hard time even thinking about like any like those, those sayings. I mean, maybe just like proof of work. I think that's pretty powerful. Yeah, proof of work. That's the first thing that comes to my head.
That's nice.
I'm sure I'll think about something else, but that's where it all starts, right? You have to put in to get out. You have to put in value to get out value, right? That's what our entire existence works on. You only are able to receive what you give, and that is encapsulated in the idea of proof of work. And nothing is for free. Nothing is truly for free. There's always trade-offs. There's always consequence. There's always cause and effect. And that is the concept of proof of work.
Solid stand-up answer. I like it. I would say don't trust, verify.
That's great too.
Next one, time machine. This is the last one.
Okay.
Time machine to 2009. How many BTC are you snagging and why?
Well, why is easy because they don't even have a dollar amount. They don't even have a dollar worth yet. Yeah,
Man,
I'm.
that's easy.
I'm stacking as much as possible. I'm mining.
Yeah.
That's the only way to get them at that point. I'm
mining your butt off.
Yeah, totally. Participating in the network, talking in the on the forums, doing as much as I can to grow it into what it has become. It's a pretty great thing that it's become, and it's only from the work of not only all the developers and all the people that are all the holders, all the miners, everything, but all the people that came before Satoshi as well that contributed in some fashion with cryptography, with ideas of digital cash. The people that the economists out there, the Austrian economists who like talk about sound real hard money, right? That had to be a concept that had to be understood for there to be somebody to design what I believe is perfect money, which is Bitcoin, and which is Satoshi and all the developers on top of Satoshi. So, yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I know that I said that was the last question, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, if you have more time, can you tell us about your project, your film that you're working on? Because that's what really drew me in to bring you onto the show.
Sure. Yeah. So I kind of, what I do a lot of times when I'm filming is I will film multiple projects at once, and I'll kind of take opportunities when I'm interviewing people to like interview them about one thing and interview about the other thing as well, and then just use those clips in different films. So I'm working on two major projects with that being said. One of them is, Bitcoin Valley. So it's going to be like a series of what it takes to onboard people, what the Comox Valley here growing in Bitcoin adoption, the people that are introduced to Bitcoin, following around the business owners, how is it affecting them, accepting Bitcoin, and all of that. Condensing that into, episodic docuseries, basically. The other one is called Bitcoin Fixes This, which is, a cliche or a saying within Bitcoin. And that is based on many things that we talked about, but each episode would be about one problem that we have in the world and how Bitcoin is either fixing it, fixed it, or will fix it. It has the potential to fix it in the future. So one episode could be about energy usage, right? And I go and talk to miners, and I talk to, people with expertise about the grid, and we figure out, can Bitcoin really create energy abundance for the world? And what would that mean? Right. The unbanked around the world, how unfair it is to have, no access to capital markets or any decent types of currency. That could be an episode, right? How does it fix the unbanked around the world? Yeah. So that's kind of the idea there, is Bitcoin Fixes This, each episode being about a problem and how Bitcoin could fix it or is fixing it.
All right. Have you started on that one? Bitcoin Fixes It?
Yeah, I have. I'm doing two episodes that I've started. One is about mining and about energy use, and the other one is about merchants as well. So that's sort of the double filming there. Is I'm doing one about how Bitcoin is, doesn't have merchant fees basically, and there can be a lot of savings and a lot of help for merchants being able to adopt and hold better money. So that one, sort of like a smaller use case of Bitcoin fixing this, but it will go more sort of deeper into like what it means to actually have sound money and be earning it, and how that will benefit a business into the future, right? It increases somebody's run rate if they're holding a sound asset on their balance sheet as a business. If they accept Bitcoin, they have a few Bitcoiners buy stuff and they don't convert it into fiat, that Bitcoin is going to grow in value, and that could save them from their hard time economically, in the broader economic landscape in their business. That could allow them to expand. That could do so much compared to the competitors out there. So that is kind of where I'm going with that one a little bit more, how it fixes businesses basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what's your experience with like the people that you interact with? The ones that are maybe not so Bitcoin centric.
With my filming or just in
with
general?
The filming, like
with
in general, like, give us some background, some behind the scenes type of, feel.
Sure.
How's it going behind the scenes?
It's still really early days with filmings. We're mostly in pre-production. I've done 1 day of filming so far. And
okay.
Yeah, so the people I've filmed with, they've been really curious about Bitcoin. They're both been business owners that are accepting Bitcoin, and we're kind of onboarding them. But I would say they're not resistant. They're just undereducated on it. So there's a sort of like, how do we bring these business owners together? And this is what we're going to do. We're going to create like a meetup that is specifically for business owners, and where it's more like the few of us from the general meetup will sort of run it and be like question and answers and help like facilitate really rapid, like intense learning so that they can really understand what it is they're getting involved in. So that's kind of where we're going with that. It's not, there's no resistance. There's just, just undereducated, they haven't taken the time to figure it out. There's been no need for them. They're just open to it just now. So that's kind of where we're at.
Okay. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And we're kind of doing the same. You have Vancouver. We have Bitcoin Samui. So if you guys are in Koh Samui, check us out. Go on the Facebook, Bitcoin Samui group. You can find us there and come to our next meetup. And if you're just passing through Koh Samui, Thailand, visiting, come check us out. Say hi.
Nice.
And talk to us. Merchants too. So that'll do it, man. Thanks so much. I think this was a great one, man. How do you feel about it? You feel
awesome.
Good?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was really a lot of fun.
We might win an Oscar, or an Emmy or something like that.
For the podcast awards, they have awards for podcasts? Maybe.
I think they do. The potties.
A Webby? I think there's
Webbies, maybe.
Yeah.
Webbies. That sounds about right. Let's win a Webby. Let's win a Webby. Okay.
Awesome.
So thanks so much. And let the people know where they can find you to, more information about your films coming out. I'm interested. Please stay in touch with them because if you need anybody to promote, I'm your guy.
Sure.
Definitely come through and help you promote these things. These are very much in my ethos as well and in my wheelhouse. I'm going to follow along, but tell the people how they can follow along and where to go.
Sure. Cool. Yeah. So my main thing that I do is my podcast, my video podcast. It's on YouTube at Bitcoin, not crypto. I post a lot on there. So check that out on YouTube. You can find me on X at Forrest HODL, HODL. Yeah, that's it. I'm on Nostr as well. Bitcoin, not crypto on Nostr. And my films, they will be released on my other YouTube channel, which is called Different Media. But right now I'm doing a Bitcoin only crowdfunding for them on Geyser Fund. So there's a Geyser Fund project, Geyser Fund / Bitcoin fixes this to check out. And I update a lot more on my films there. Eventually those will be available for people.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
You heard it first, family. Check them out there. And that'll do it for us. That's Forrest HODL. I'm Khalif Harold. This was the Real Hard Money Podcast. We'll see you next time. Take care.
See ya.
See ya.